What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining me today. It's your homeboy, Zack Miller, for the 101 edition of the 1004 Show. The 1004 Show is long-form interviews with people that you probably never heard of, but are making a huge impact in your community, in your business community, and all across the world. Today, I'm delighted for the 101 edition to have the leader of Powerhouse Planning, Jessica Bertsch. This is a fun conversation. I learned a lot about her. She is a military spouse, so we talk a little bit about that, how she came up with the name Powerhouse, what she thinks about the news, and her Olympic spirit. She is so proud to be an American, and why you should pay yourself on day one of starting a business. It's Jessica Bertsch of Powerhouse Planning, the 101 edition. That was really quick. 101 edition of the 1004 Show. Thanks for being with us today. You're going to love this one. Roll it. What is a powerhouse to you?
Ooh, that's how I got my name. So powerhouse to me is, I think it's a big, powerful source. And it's been funny. I've been watching the Olympics here lately, and they keep saying like, "Oh, he's a powerhouse," or "She's a powerhouse," and I'm like, "Yes, I named our company correctly." So to me, it's just a big, large force that does dynamics things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about positioning too, right? So if you use a big, bold statement word like powerhouse, you're able to represent yourself and your business as this big, bold, powerful thing, and I think that's important. When you were thinking about positioning your business, why did Powerhouse become the word associated and ultimately the brand?
I think our name actually is kind of different because I believe that we've grown into the name. I put the name out there and I'm like, this is what I want it to be, and I think that we have become that. But in the beginning, it was just me. So do I think that I'm this amazing powerhouse that brings down, all of these companies and does all? No, it takes a force, and there are many of us that are the powerhouse.
I like that word. It's a forest. I've never heard of that before, but it's true. So,
Yep.
what are the roots of Powerhouse Planning?
So we celebrated our fifth anniversary. It was this in 2017. And we started because when I left the corporate world, I had an old client come to me that was like, "Hey, would you mind doing some side freelance work?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I probably should do it legally. So I need to set up a business." So I set up a business. And within 6 months, it just started to grow. I started to get more and more contracts. And then as I got them, I'm super big. If you know or read anything about me, there's this healthy work-life balance. And I'm like, I can't do all this myself. And so that's when I started to think, who can become the workforce of Powerhouse? And that's when I tapped into the military spouse and veteran community.
Yeah, it's something I was definitely going to talk about. So the healthy work-life balance, what is that to you, and how many hours is appropriate for each?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I mean, it comes and goes in cycles because it's all around who our clients are at the time, and what their needs are at the time, right? So anytime you're on a retainer-based contract, when they need you, you're there. So I wouldn't say that, oh, I do 80 hours a week or I do 50. Ask me each week. If you want to give me a text, I'll let you know. But it really does. It varies. But for me, work-life balance, I know when I'm feeling like I'm not giving enough to my kids or my husband or any volunteer opportunities, then I know that I'm out of sync. And for me, that means, all right, who can I look to bring on to our team to help me out so that I do feel healthy still?
How do you track that?
Oh, I can tell. I mean, I can just tell primarily by, am I sitting in a good spot? Am I still creative? Am I still full of energy? And I can definitely tell when I've lost that energy and when I'm just kind of in that slump of drained, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah, I work with a lot of businesses, and they're like, "Well, what data points should I track?" And I'm like, "You definitely understand numbers, but like,
Totally.
there's no story there. Your gut
No.
doesn't." So people are like, "What's the tool that you trust the most?" And my answer
Yeah.
is my gut, because
Yes.
I just know it, right? I mean, it's like
Yes.
so many people can look at numbers and say, "Oh, this is the story," but then they're
Yep.
not saying that. Well, actually, there's an outlier on here that we know
Yep.
is not going to come back,
Totally.
and so I my gut seems to
It's your
have
gut.
been okay for me so far.
Totally. Totally. Agreed. Agreed.
So, are there numbers that you do track though, in
Yeah,
business?
yeah. But we're a little different. If if anyone has researched as they're listening to this, if anyone's researched our company, I'm huge into giving back. So you will notice that our growth metrics, like our revenue metrics, and everything that we track, I also make sure that we're giving at an even higher rate each year. So what that means is, if we bring in X amount of dollars, then we should be giving even more X amount of dollars each year. It's just something I started years ago. So yes, when you ask me, what do we track obviously what's coming in the door, but then and for us, I always want to make sure that we're recontracting companies. That's huge for me. That means people are still loving us and still want to work with us. And then the other thing is how much money we're giving too. So,
Why give back? Like, what's the genesis of that?
um, I don't, for me, I feel like, I could ask, why do we work? And for me, sure, we work because we want to give back to society and we need to eat, we need to have a shelter, all of the basics. But I think for me, working is even larger than that. It's, I work for a greater good. Like, yes, I want to pay the bills and I want to have nice things, but I also want to make sure that others that are in need, that we can, help make a difference there. So.
Is that something that you've thought of for a long time, and like when you started out was something that you consciously wanted to do? Or because I think a
Yeah.
lot of people want to give back, but they don't know when to start, how much can they give, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and I will tell you, I don't want to say I started too early doing that, but the first year in business, I didn't even pay myself, which was insane. And there's tip number one for anyone listening: you need to pay yourself? You are worth something. And that was something I did not do. And looking back, I wish I would have paid myself a little that first year. And then, yeah, rolling into the second year, I started giving back. And were we really at a spot where I should have been giving as much as I was? Probably not. But it's worked out okay. And we've continued to do that. And I've continued to put an emphasis on it. Going back to your original question, yeah, when I was in the corporate world, I obviously was able to see financials of companies. And I was just in awe of how much money comes in each year. And the level of luxury that people live at, and how they're not doing even more with that money. And that was crazy to me. And so I always kind of internally promised myself that, hey, if you ever do anything by yourself as a company, I really just wanted to do that. And it is nuts. And I think if people would look at our numbers, they would probably say, what are you doing? But I would say that I'm sleeping well at night. And I love the feeling of making a difference.
You said you were in corporate world. What was the transition like? How long were you in corporate world? And then kind of too
Uh,
long. Too long. It looks like, right?
it was quick. It was about a 6 month transition. I went from corporate world to then starting Powerhouse. It was a crazy time of life, total step out on faith. Like, I think I can do this, and then went for it. And my husband, when I brought it up to him, I'm like, how is he going to react to this? And literally, the moment I told him, he's like, why wouldn't you? And I'm like, really? And he's like, you have the personality. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't. And I'm like, okay. And so we went for it.
How long were you working in corporate?
Um, 5 years, and then before that, I worked in universities. So I've always kind of worked in large corporate type ish feels, but I have never ever driven something by myself, and that's why, I mean, I had so many learning curves in the beginning, and now I feel like, I don't want to say like I'm in the perfect spot, but I feel like going into year 6, I feel way more confident than I did in the beginning
I
because
definitely.
of the lessons learned.
Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely think the longer you do something, the better it becomes, the easier it becomes, because you're like, oh, hopefully you're not going to learn from those mistakes that you made before. So, was there something about the corporate world that you really didn't like?
Well, I mean, for me, it was tricky just because we moved every 2 to 3 years, and I was fortunate the company kept hanging on, and they did allow me to stay as we kept moving. Um, but I don't know. I don't like, um, the thing I struggle with, and my husband asked me, he's like, do you ever think you'll ever go back to corporate world? Is that ever a dream for you? But I love the flexibility that being an entrepreneur gives. And at this point, now that I've tasted it for 5+ years, I don't know if I could go back to having so such rigid. I mean, there's rules, policies, procedures, and here at Powerhouse, like, we embrace have work-life balance. I mean, people meet their deliverables, but I also will be the first to tell you, do you need to go on vacation, you know? Um, and I don't think a lot of companies embrace that you need to have healthy employees to have a healthy work-life environment, you know? So,
Yeah, it's almost like you're a number at a corporate job.
yeah. Yeah, and that's tricky for me. That's not my personality, you know? So,
What's the elevator pitch for Powerhouse planning?
um, well, I would say the quick one is that we save companies thousands of dollars by providing you a virtual workforce. And so, how that works is, let's say you're a small to medium sized business and you need, which everyone should have, social media, graphic design, website, IT support, quality assurance, project managers. But companies cannot afford that. And we're that solution set. We're your virtual team that comes along beside you, and we serve virtually doing all of those things for you as a team, though. So we carry your brand, we push your branded message, and we do that on an ongoing basis.
When you were 5+ years ago, going from corporate to learning business yourself, what was one of the biggest challenges that you went through, and how did you get through it?
Hmm. I would say biggest challenge, finding the right people. And for me, it's kind of tricky because I need to make sure that because we're all 1099. So I need to make sure that the freelancers are incredibly happy. But then I also have to make sure all the clients are incredibly happy. So it's not like a traditional business where you just want to make sure your clients are happy and you have this workforce behind you that they have to show up every day. So I have to make sure that my team wants to show up every day and that my clients want to keep showing up and contracting with us every year. So for me, it was finding the right people. And I would say that on both sides. I think that I wanted to make sure that I found the right freelancers that were dynamic and felt ownership with our company. And then I needed to find the right clientele too, because we are different. It's not like you can walk right into your graphic design office and say, hey, I need you to tweak this, this, this. It's literally you have to text me or pick up the phone and say, hey, Jess, let's work on this. And so it's just getting used to a different, even corporate culture for clients for when you work with us. So it's, for me, it's just finding the right people on both sides.
And the team is virtual, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So then, how do you do that virtually then? Because you can't just go up to the person and say, "Hey, Johnny," or "Hey, Sally, like I need you to do
Yeah.
this."
Yeah. Yeah. It depends on the contract. There's some contracts built in where I go in quarterly and meet with the client and we determine what's that next quarter look like. Um, but I will tell you, once people kind of get used to us, they're just like, all right, like roll, you can do it, which I love. It's this huge trust, that we've built with our clients that just kind of allow us to roll with things. So yeah, sometimes it's meeting and then sometimes it is. It's just a lot of phone calls and people just saying, tweak this, do this. And then it's, me working with the Powerhouse team on that project or that client that, we get things right and set up. So.
So it sounds like culture is really important to you. How do you kind
Totally.
of put the culture together and understand really where you want it to be, and how do you make sure that the right people, because your one of your biggest mistakes starting was finding those people.
Yeah.
How do you kind of develop the culture that you want and then find the right pairings of people to put into the culture?
Yeah. For us, I mean, it's initially at the interview. Whenever with freelancers, we go ahead and tell them from the get-go, like, this is what our company is, this is how we work, this is what it's going to feel like. And we make sure they understand from the beginning what they're getting into. And on the flip side, then whenever we sign on with clients, there is never any hidden like people never think, oh, so there's going to be 6 people that are going to show up at my office and I'm going to have a IT support right there. I mean, they understand how we work and we make sure that before anything is signed, that people understand what that's going to feel like going into it.
What are some of your favorite interview questions when you're onboarding someone?
Um, well, I always, because how everybody always just gives their verbal resume. Like that's just normal. Well, I did this and this. And I always say, tell me something that I should know about you that is not on your resume. And it's always like this 10 seconds of what, but there's always something that's a hidden gem in your career or just in your past life that it's like, yeah, if someone knew that I did that, they would probably, that's, you remember them, like me. I always tell people when people ask them, like, well, I used to DJ, like, and then they remember, like, oh, she was a DJ. So it's always stuff like that and it helps me remember too, that maybe I don't have a place for you on the team right now, but if I remember Zack was a black belt, right? Then I'm going to remember. Exactly. But I mean, it's something that I'll remember about you that's going to trigger my mind in the future if I need to find placement. So
That's one of my favorite questions too, is like, what's something about you that I haven't asked that no one
yeah,
knows about, right? And so,
yeah.
what was your DJ name?
Well, it went by Jess, but the show that was probably the most popular.
That's so
I know.
boring. That's so
But you
boring.
got to hear, you got to hear. So it was a heavy metal show, the one that I did on Sunday nights, and it was with a guy. So we were co-hosting. It was Big Hunk of Love and Jess. So, and that's what he went by, Big Hunk of Love, and the whole show. But yeah, we did that for a few years. It was pretty fun.
You married into a military family.
Yeah, yeah.
We've had several guests that are military spouses. How has that complexity really helped gel you into a better entrepreneur?
Yeah. I mean, the flexibility and being resilient that you have to be. And for me, I have 3 children, 6 and under. So I mean, moves are insane. Moving a business is insane. And, but I'm used to it. And I know that sounds insane. And people, like we'll be moving next summer and everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're moving already. I'm like, yeah, it'll probably be time. I mean, it's just because you get into this routine and it's because you're resilient. You're just like, all right, I'm ready to meet new people. I'm ready to see new faces. I'm ready to get involved in a different way in a new community. And that's exactly what, being an entrepreneur is. You have to like, just take it head on and be like, I'm going for it. And when it gets tough, I still got to stick with it. And that's how the military life is. You can't just walk away.
Resilient is one of my favorite words. And
Yeah.
you just said it. Like, I think entrepreneurs, business owners, people who are in charge, I guess, they have to be resilient. And if you're not, you likely will lose. And so it's, that they say at the roller coaster, the high highs, the low lows, but you got to be able to push through it and do it. And so I love that.
Yeah.
How are you transparent with your team and then your clients as well? Because it sounds like you're telling them a lot, like, hey, well, this is really what you're going to get out of us. What's kind of the structure of your transparency?
Well, I mean, actually, an example would be just this past in January, I realized, it's probably in the corporate workforce, right? You're always having your annual reviews. You're finding out like what's good at your company, what's bad at your company. And I realized that Powerhouse has never, because we can't, everybody's a 1099, so we can't do annual reviews. I mean, people kind of know if you're getting rehired, then you're probably doing a good job. But for me, as far as transparency, what I did this, here recently is I sent out an evaluation, and it literally and it only took people 5 or 10 minutes, but it went through every part of Powerhouse, our communication, our leadership, and all of these different things. And then everybody provided feedback, and you better believe all of that feedback was then shared with the team. It was, this is where everybody thinks we sit. Here are our amazing strengths. Here are our, areas of improvement. And then at the end of it, and the end of the document that I gave everybody, I said, okay, so now based off of that feedback, here's where I need to grow as a leader. Here's where our company needs to grow. And now they know what the way ahead for 2018 is. So I don't know. I mean, I think everything about us at this point is pretty transparent because I want us to be literally the best that our team can be. And in order for that to happen, they have to know, even though we're 1099s, they still have to know where everybody stands and how other people are feeling.
Give me an example of where your team thought you were doing poor.
So one thing we do is we do an e-newsletter 4 times a year. And 2 people had noted that our rate seemed low. And I'm like, oh, really? Like I had never thought of that. And that's because that's one contract that we just send out like, hey, we're going to have you write for our e-newsletter, and this is how much we're going to pay you. Where our other contracts, people give me their rates. So it's a little tricky. So what I did is I literally sat down one afternoon and emailed all of these people that hire and onboard writers all the time. And I'm like, hey, what should our rate be? And what does it look like? And you better believe I've learned, like, we need to increase our rate. So I think it's things like that that I had no clue that these people were writing and thinking, man, I wish she'd pay me a little more. But out of that survey, that's so simple. Okay, let's pay a little more, and I'm trying to think some of our other areas. Oh, I know another one. Another one was there's a couple people that work for us that really wish there was more professional development, which another tricky spot for us, right? Because I can't say everybody needs to meet with me every quarter and we're going to go over goal setting. But what I can do, and this is what I wrote back to them, I am more than willing to mentor you and to walk through goal setting. But that just means you need to come to me and say, hey, I'd like this. And then I will provide you the tools that we can walk through it for the next year. So that's another thing. Like, had no clue that people were sitting there wishing they could grow more and they wanted my help. And that's something simple and easy to do. So transparency, I think it's just asking people, where they feel they are. And then it's me saying, okay, this is where I sit. This is what I can and can't do. And let's try and make some things happen.
And the reason why it's a challenge for some of those is because it's a fine line, because they're 1099, not full time.
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot legally. You have to be really, really careful. Everything essentially in the contract, when I contract with them, it has to state what their deliverables will be. Like, I could never say, hey, Zack, you need to work from 10 to 2 every day. You just have to be very cautious. I have to say, Zack, your deliverables are going to be XYZ. You have to have them done within 7 days. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of tricky. So it's the same thing. I would never, and that's why I never thought about offering professional development, because for me, that seems like a corporate, right, type of culture. But there are people out there that are craving it, because if you only do 1099 freelance work, then you don't have those opportunities,
Yeah, and I think that you also have to give them the option of, like, yes or no. Like, if they
Totally.
Yeah. So it's a very fine line, is what my lawyers tell me.
Exactly. You got it.
As someone that does move around a lot and went from corporate world to business owner world, how do you become a somebody when you were a nobody?
What do you mean by that? Like, how do I market myself?
Well, I mean, you as a business owner now, you now have to position yourself and create this new network, or you have to create these new relationships to let people know that, hey, you can buy from me now.
Yeah.
You can buy from Powerhouse now. You can create a relationship with me now, where before it was kind of under this other roof, or under this umbrella. So how do you create new relationships with people when you might not have any of those to start?
Yeah. A lot of the relationships at this point, and all of our business, truthfully, it's grown from word of mouth at this point. So it's just, I guess the best way to explain it or describe it is that we've proven ourselves, and each time we continue to prove ourselves, then it's been beautiful, because clients have started to talk to their friends that have just grown our business. But again, I'm not traditional in the sense that you will see me at every conference and every convention, and even doing tons of podcasts. You don't see a lot of that with me, but it's honestly because we were just in the spot where word of mouth has helped, or has just happened for us. But I will also say that that's not the end all be all for me. I mean, I think when we get more settled with our military career and our kids are a little older and things like that, that I will have more time to devote towards growing the business even more. So,
do you do anything to encourage word of mouth?
I have not. I have not, and I know that's insane. But yeah, I haven't.
So no one is getting incentives, nothing like that?
No. No, but you know what? I think, Zach, the incentive for people is that when you say you can save thousands of dollars and you have an entire virtual team, and that's literally what has happened for our clients. When you think about what it costs to have a full-time IT, quality assurance, graphic designer, I mean, you're talking what, $350,000, $400,000 a year plus overhead, right? You're paying for benefits, insurance, like all of that stuff. And when you can then say, you know what, I can probably maintain all of that for you, and you could probably pay 80 to 100,000. I mean, that's insane, right? And so I think that's what's happened. People have then gone on to say, well, this is what I've done and this is how I've saved money. And it's just been beautiful for us. But I don't want you to think that I live in this like la la land where it's going to always be this magical. Like, I mean, I get that there is going to be a point where I'm going to have to really pound the pavement and keep going. But I will also say that we're in a sweet spot where I don't feel like I need to do that right now. And I'm happy with where we are. So.
Do you think that our world is going to continue to the 1099 kind of, let's just call it freelancer route, you know, whether or not that's the right word or not, but like where we're going to have less full-time positions and more people doing like 5 or 6 things together to kind of be that one?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's gradually shifted that way in the past couple years. And now it's technology and you look at, you know, everything that's coming, right? HoloLens, like the things you can wear on your head where you can be in virtual spaces. I mean, back in the day, it's gonna be like the Jetsons. You know, I mean, I think the world is becoming, right? The world is just becoming more and more tech savvy. And it's cost savings too if you do it in a smart way. And so I think people are starting to embrace that. I mean, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of when I look back and I'm like, why do people just keep, I don't want to say like flocking to us, but why is word of mouth working so well for us? And I think it's just because of numbers. I mean, why would you not do what we're doing? Right. So.
Yeah. So you're on the 1004 show. The numbers mean like 1,000 companies with 4 employees each. And the reason is because so many people think that for an area to be successful or for a business to be successful, it needs to have that you know 4 businesses with 1,000 employees. And I think it's the opposite, right? Where you're going to see just a handful of employees or a handful of team members because it just makes more sense from a financial perspective. Why would I spend so much money when I don't have to? And if I can outsource some of these things and only have someone, you know, you don't have to hire someone full time to do 2 hours worth of work anymore. You could, you know, hire someone like a Powerhouse. So when you're thinking about the future and you're thinking about the HoloLens and all that type of stuff, like how do you educate yourself to make sure that Powerhouse stays on top, and is not just having, you know, a solid 5 years?
Yeah. It was actually in November of this past year, I kind of had that moment of I'm like, what's the next phase? Like, how do I make sure that we are smart? And when I say smart, like deeply, deeply smart, ahead of the trends, on top of the trends. And so what we've started doing as a company, and I have an EA that is phenomenal that works alongside me. And so we came up with every month, we're creating just kind of like an internal little e-blast that we're sharing tips and trends and stuff that's going on in social, because you've seen, I mean, even in social media, you wake up tomorrow and just because of one thing that's been said, the entire platform of social media of Facebook is switching over, or, you know, and it's that kind of stuff that we have to stay on top of. So we're doing a lot internally to just make sure that our team is educated. And once again, though, right, it's a take it or leave it type of thing. We can provide it to these 1099s and say, hey, if you have a moment, drink a cup of coffee and read this. But the biggest thing is for me that I'm staying on top of it and she's staying on top of it, the EA, and we're kind of going from there. So.
Very cool. What is Jessica Bertsch the best in the world at?
I would say I'm really good at making sure that we have exceeded expectations. And what I mean by that, and on both sides, I'm going to go back to what we talked about a little bit in the beginning of this, but I make sure that freelancers work with us and walk away from working with us screaming that they like loved their experience. And I try to spoil them rotten. And then same thing with our clients. I want to make sure that they're raving fans because as we've talked about, the more they cheerlead for us, the more they've brought us business. And so I think I'm really, really good at making sure they're happy and we've exceeded expectations, but it's like a genuine way. I mean, I would hope that if you ever asked, like, what do you think of Jess Bertsch? I would hope someone would say, you know, she was real. She really made sure that we were happy. And that's kind of, I think, what I'm good at.
I think way too many people are trying to be someone else instead of themselves. And I love that word real. And I mean, I'm a very real person, I feel, right? I'm just like, I'm going to speak my mind, do what I want.
Yeah.
and not like a disrespectful kind of way, but it's like I don't want to be someone else. I want to be me, and I want to be the best thing in the world. So I really appreciate that. What's something on your bucket list?
With Powerhouse,
Or you personally?
I mean, I want to be an Olympian. Um, I'm a diehard Olympics fan, so this is my season right now. But I would say, let's see, bucket list. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm just in a good spot. I mean, my bucket list stuff is crazy, right? I love to do adventurous stuff. So, I know. I still need to jump out of a plane. I've done enough bungee jumping, but definitely I want to skydive. Like, I have a lot of that crazy stuff on my list. Um,
Don't you skydive every day as a business owner?
well, yeah, right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to do that too, but as I get older, I get more terrified.
I know, right? I think if I would do it, I would just have them shove me out of the plane, but I still want to do it. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I feel pretty good where I am. So,
No, I like that. What made you cry last?
oh, what made me cry last? Watching TV. This Is Us. Watching that show, man, that gets me. Probably that, or it might be when Shaun White. I mean, he took home the gold, and like I'm a crazy Olympics fan, so that was pretty intense for him, and I got pretty excited for him, like he was my brother or something. I take ownership in our Olympians, just in case you're
There you go. What's your favorite Olympic sport?
wondering. Winter Olympics, it's definitely probably snowboarding because I cannot do it, and it's the hardest thing known to mankind. So I get a little rowdy watching it.
There's a big movement right now for kind of women in leadership, women in general trying to get in bigger and better positions. How,
Yeah.
as a female business owner, are you encouraging that kind of growth, or how do you what do you see as kind of the big problems there that you're trying to fix, and then how do you kind of make sure that it continues?
Yeah, I just gave you an eye roll. Did you see that? Okay, and the reason being, I feel like I don't ever want to get wrapped up in my identity of I'm a female and I need to be here. I get wrapped up in this is who I am and I deserve to be here. So it's so hard for me, right? I mean, there's all these movements, lean in and this and that, um, and for me, it's just I want to be the best version of myself, and I don't want it to be because I am a female or because he's a male. I don't know. I know that's tricky. So to kind of go off of your question, I guess my biggest thing is I would mentor any and everybody, and I don't care who you are and what gender you are. I just want people to be their best version of themselves, and I want people to get promoted based on what you've done. And that's kind of it. I don't know.
I appreciate that. So why do you think the messaging isn't towards that then?
Because I mean, when you look at statistics and you want to wrap your brain around metrics and all that kind of stuff, right? It shows that women don't get promoted as much. They don't get paid as much. And I get that. I totally get that. But I'm at a point where, okay, I get that. I understand that. But now from here on out, I want you to look at what I've done and who I am, and watch me kind of just push through and become the best version of myself. But I'm also, like, we talked about earlier in the conversation, I'm huge into work-life balance. And so I will not work 90 hours a week and sacrifice my marriage or my children and their upbringing. And that's also something that's not traditional right now. I mean, in order for people to like fleet ahead, they're kind of letting go other things in their life. And that's just not me. So I don't know. So it's just hard for me to and a lot of people are, right? Like, oh, you're this woman, you could really take some of these big movements and hop on it. But my movement is kind of where I am and where I want to be. And I'm okay with that.
So are you saying that you want to be known, and I think this is what you're saying, so you want to make it because you made it, not because of some movement telling you that you should do it?
Exactly. I don't, and if anything, maybe it's my own movement, right? I mean, it's just, I don't want to have to get behind anything to become something. I feel like we all are something, and we just need to become what we are. I don't know. I feel like too many people just hop on whatever's cool at the time. And that's just not me. Like,
It's
I'd
the
like to,
Olympic spirit, if you think about it, right? I mean, think about the trials and tribulations that all of these athletes have to go through. And some of them make it to the top and some of them don't. And
yeah,
some of them have, like, I mean, Lindsey Vonn, right? I mean, she, a big win and then down, big win and then down. And so I always tell people, like, I think it's actually pretty easy to get to the top.
yeah,
It's pretty difficult to stay at the top. Right?
yeah,
It's hard. It's easy to have, if we're talking about football, it's easy to have one good game. It's easy to have one good season. But to have the greatest career of all time,
yeah,
to become the GOAT,
yeah,
that is a stat that I think most people aren't going towards, but it's a stat that I want to be. Like, I want to be the best ever. It sounds like you want to be the best ever. And that's something that I think is really telling with you, where it's, you want to make sure that you're making that. And if you become the greatest of something of all time, or if you have like the greatest career, you had a lot of help getting there, but you really helped, or you really created that yourself and made it.
right,
So
right.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think, just to be clear too, I don't want it to be, I guess, like, for example, let's say you want to be the best, right? And you want to work 120 hours a week, then I will high five you and I will say, good work, Zach, do what you need to do. And I'm not going to judge that, but I also don't feel like I have to become that in order to define what I think is success for me. Get what I'm saying?
I do not work 120 hours a week. I don't even know that I believe in the 40-hour work week. I believe in, do what you need to do to get done, try and move forward. And so I have this thought that most of the time you don't need to be on your A game.
Yeah.
But all these people are trying to be on their A game 24/7. I'm like, that's not sustainable. So figure out when you need to be on your A game. So like when I'm, with you on episode 101 of the 1004 show, I need to be on my A game. I need to be like the greatest interviewer in the world. And it's like, figure out those times. Because if you're just doing research for something, you can be, you don't have to be on your A game. Prepare and practice and figure that out. But you don't need to be like game ready. And I think all too often people are trying to be game ready 24/7, and they're like, well, I don't know why it's not working. It's because you don't need to be.
Yeah. See, you get me. You get it.
I love it. So how do you position yourself to continue to grow and have people see you?
I mean, stepping out of, the traditional comfort of doing things like podcast and even myself, I personally, with Powerhouse, we need to get better at marketing ourselves more, even on social media. We spend all day working for our clients, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to remember to put even more and pour even more into Powerhouse, because we need to grow ourselves too, and that's something I'm trying to be more intentional about in 2018. Because I have not been intentional about that. And so, if you follow us on Facebook and some of our other social media platforms, we've really started to try to be more of a resource type of company, and grow in that way. So
I found that a lot of businesses, just like yours, will be great at helping others, but they suck at telling their story. They suck at marketing themselves, as you will.
Yeah.
So why do you think you haven't in the past, even though you're starting to do it now, you haven't taken the techniques and the tools and the strategies that you use on others to use on yourself?
Yeah, I think it's time. I think that we spend all of the waking hours that we have, just pouring, to our clients, and as it's just like I said earlier, I think it's just, it's almost a reminder. Like you have to schedule it in. Like, I am going to focus these 2 hours each week just on how to grow Powerhouse. And I haven't done that in the past. And I almost need to view our company like a client. And I am, I'm trying to do that this year. So, and I really think it's just, I haven't done it because of time.
What are some of your favorite tools to use for the business?
Well, the basics, right? Hootsuite and those types of things, QuickBooks, blah, blah, blah. I will tell you a gem that a lot of people don't know about if you do contract a lot is HelloSign. And HelloSign is pretty awesome. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's great for quick contracting. It's legally binding type contracts that people can just sign real quick. And for us, it's beautiful, right? Because we can quickly sign our team, our 1099 team, and then we can quickly contract with clients too. And we can have really a 24-hour turnaround time with getting everybody contracted and then start. So if you came to us on a Monday and you're like, hey, Jess, I'm interested in you rebranding our company, then I could say, all right, by Wednesday we can roll, which is beautiful. Um, so I love HelloSign. And then other ones, which I think a lot of people know, Mayama, MailChimp. I mean, we're kind of like social, or we're kind of virtual techie nerdy people that we use any and every platform that we can, because that's how we drive businesses for people. So
other than being DJ Jess, what's something
yeah.
about you that most people don't know?
I mean, I wanted to be Katie Couric. I went to college to be a news anchor. And if I was Katie Couric, guess where I'd be right now? At the Olympics. But anyways, I mean, I wanted to be a news anchor, and I never followed through with all of that.
You know, Katie Couric grew up in your area where you're living now. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think my dad went to high school with her.
Really?
Yeah, Fairfax, Burke area.
Ah.
Annandale, something like that. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you wanted to be an anchor. Where'd you go to school?
I went to Indiana State for my undergrad, and then University of Arkansas for my master's.
So if you were to give me your best Katie Couric impression, but as Jess Bertsch, be the anchor today.
Oh, I can't. I mean, I can't do that.
Can you play by play the Shaun White snowboard?
No, but I wish I would have recorded, like, there's all this video footage of people celebrating his win, and we probably could have made some money off of I was on like the edge of our ottoman, like screaming like he was my child. It was insane. But I don't know.
There was a big uproar about him and the flag. What did you?
Yeah. So as soon as it happened, like literally first I saw it all happen, and my husband even commented like, he's going to get some grief for that, And I said, I don't even think he realizes he has the flag, to be real honest. And so then I watched it back, and sure enough, like, I don't even think, because he was grabbing everything, and I'm like, that man is going to be, just drugged through the mud. And he was the next day. But then if you watch all of his interviews, he's so USA. It's like he eats, sleeps, and breathes our country. So I'm like, let the guy go.
I agree. There's, context, right? It's not like the guy took the flag, threw it down, people ticked off. Like, he clearly was winded. He clearly wasn't in his mind. He clearly was just like super excited. And yeah, I mean, I don't understand why people are like hating on him for that. It was just like, this is ridiculous. Like you can just watch it. Like you said, he clearly is not all there because he just did the greatest run in snowboard history.
Well, and I think that people lose sight of, and this is kind of like business too, right? If you ever had like a super duper high, like something insane that's happened in your life, and that can be business wise, closing a large contract, getting married, like these big life changing moments for your business or your personal life, and someone came up and handed you something or did something, right? You're just like, what the heck? Like, I just did something awesome.
And especially when you're not expecting it.
Right. And so I think that's all that occurred, but who knows?
Context kind of around that, but not necessarily with using that story, is context is often not there for a lot of people, or they see something on the news and they're like, oh, this is what happened, and they get their own kind of thoughts around it. How can people kind of understand context a little bit more when they don't have the full story there, or they weren't there to actually see it?
Well, professionally, I'll tell you, I pull myself back from all of that. Like, if you follow me anywhere on social media, I don't get involved in that kind of stuff. Just because I feel like unless I fully know everything, then I shouldn't be saying this is what I feel, this is what I believe. And so I just don't jump on that. And a lot of people actually that own companies, they have their social media feeds that are like their Jess Bertsch personal Facebook page, and then they have like their public speaker, and that's not me. Like, across the board, you can follow me on Facebook, and I'm very transparent. Like, but you'll also not see me saying, well, I believe on this and I believe in that. But one reason I don't do that is because I haven't fully researched all angles of stuff, so I'm not going to try and offend somebody when I don't fully know something, Yeah,
I've been known to be a controversial person, but not on things like that, right? Because I don't know the story. I'm not in there. I'm sure I'm probably have an opinion on some of those things, but I'm with you though. Like, I don't know all the facts, and I find that actually in the journalism media world, like, people are now reporting on things without all the facts, and I have a journalism degree too.
Okay.
Did you have a journalism degree?
Well, ours was radio, TV, film is
Okay.
how we both, yeah.
So I like to use the example of Ryan Lochte, the Olympics and when he got in trouble last year and how that went out, and there was like no due diligence and no fact checking, all this stuff, and it's just like news has become entertainment. It's like, let me just get this out there instead of actually understanding what happened. And so I think people need to understand that, hey, like this information, like they don't really know what happened yet.
Yeah.
And you can have an opinion, but it's, people are going to figure out the real truth. And, a week later you found out that he was lying about everything.
Right.
So why do you love the Olympics so much?
I think it started 8 years ago. I was lucky enough to go when they were in Vancouver. And once it's like a marathon or something, right? If you've ever been to a marathon, you start seeing this spirit, like you cheer on everybody because who's going to run 26 miles or whatever. And it's kind of like that at the Olympics. It's just insane. It's and no matter what, like you're high-fiving everybody from the US, and there's no greater sense of country pride than going to the Olympics. And when I went 8 years ago, I'm like, this is it. Like, this is my spot. This is what Americans should feel like. This is how we should gather around each other. And it brings people together, and I love it. And so I think that's why I get into it so much. I don't know.
How long have you been married or with your husband?
So we've been married 12 years, together 14. Yeah.
Do you think that you would feel differently if you weren't married to someone in the military about the whole like patriotic piece?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I have a way deeper appreciation for the United States than I ever have. And I also was fortunate when I was in the corporate world, I got to travel a lot to the Middle East and do some corporate travel that allowed me to step in some very uncomfortable places. And I think that gave me a greater sense of appreciation for and truthfully, an appreciation of privilege of what we have in the United States. And that kind of helped shaped my pride, I think, for our country. I don't know. I'm maybe a little too crazy for it, but I love the U.S.
I appreciate it. Maybe this never happens, but when you're down in the dumps, what's something that you do to get yourself out?
Well, it's totally cheesy, but this is truthfully what I do. I call it on my computer, it's my happy folder. And anytime that seriously, no joke. And anytime that I've gotten you're like, who is this lady? But anytime that I've gotten positive feedback from a team member, from clients, from my husband, family, anything, I throw everything in that happy folder. And back in the day, I had a happy folder, but it was before technology stuff, right? And it was an actual tangible folder. But yeah, now it's my electronic folder. And whenever I'm just having a yucky day, I go in there, and that's kind of what reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing and the difference that I'm making or trying to make in the world. So totally cheesy, but it's true.
So,
what I do.
So for me, I have my resignation letter from when I worked in corporate America. I just saw it. I'm looking at it on my screen, and it's like me saying I'm done with this world and how I don't want to go back to that place ever again. And so for me, the metric that I'm trying to track is happiness. And it's a hard one to track, but you just know it, right? There's not like a number that you can see. You just kind of know it. And when I worked, it was actually TV news. When I worked in TV news, I was miserable. And it was the worst, probably 2 years of my life. The first year was okay. And I just never wanted to be in that place ever again. And so occasionally when I'm not having, the most amazing of days, I'll look at that letter and say, but I'm not there. And I don't ever want to get there again. And so
there you go.
I like that. Awesome. The happy folder. I like that. Is there a book or like a quote that you live by?
No, and I don't even know what quote or what book or I would even say is my favorite right now. No.
Where do you learn?
Where do I learn?
Yeah.
Right now it's definitely from others. It's a lot from my team, which is really cool because I Actually, one of my mentors told me you should always surround yourself with people that are smarter than yourself in areas that you don't understand. And so you would never want me personally to build you a website. Like never, 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 never. And so guess what? I found the smartest person known to mankind at building websites. And guess what? He's on my team. And so that's what I've done, right? I just surround myself with all these smart, smart people. And some people are like, oh, doesn't that intimidate you? Like, don't you fear that people are smarter than you? And heck no, man, I'm a sponge. Like, teach me everything. And it's cool, right? They're not condescending. It's not like, Jess, why didn't you know that? It's let me come alongside you and explain to you why we need to do that, you know? So for me, I've learned from people on our team.
Yeah, and I feel like those people appreciate you for what you're best at, just
Yeah.
the same way that you appreciate them. What's a question that I haven't asked you that most people do?
Hmm. I mean, a lot of people ask me like, how do I, because it depends on how much you know about my personal life, but I volunteer a lot too. And with the kids and all that kind of stuff going on, people ask like, how do you balance it all? That's asked a lot. And I would tell you that my answer to that is, I'm not always in balance. Like my life is always, you know, up and down. And I think if you know me or whatever, you would see that I'm pretty transparent about that. I definitely, you know, I mentioned earlier in the program that when I feel like I'm doing too much or volunteering too much or whatever, I've learned to like sit on my hands, and I've just learned some stuff to not raise my hand to do everything. And so it's usually people just ask me, how do I balance it all? And the answer is I don't. And when I'm out of balance, I find ways to kind of go up against that.
Why? So I like that. Like, don't always raise your hand. Don't learn how to say no. Is that a skill that you learned, or how did you kind of grasp the concept of I can't
Yeah.
do everything?
Yeah, I learned it. And, you know, you were asking about, so I've been married 12 years, and of that, he's been out at sea a third of those years. So imagine that with children and running a business, and volunteering. It's like, honestly, people probably would think there was something a little crazy with me. But it's because I've learned to ask for help. I've learned to sit on my hands. Like I've just learned there are things that I have to do in order to be that best version of myself. And I think for so long, and especially in women, that we do tend to, we don't tell people, right? We want to look like we've got it all together, we can handle it all, and I am not that person. Like I will be the first to tell you I need help. Like I need someone to, you know, I need to bounce this idea off someone, and I've just learned that I can be a better version of myself when I'm real. So